What's up, you guys? So today we're going to be doing a tour review and comparison of the Hammond Collection Jurassic World Rebirth Dilophosaurus. Now in the reveals that we had gone months ago, this was pretty much, in my opinion, the only good thing to come out of those. And so far, my point has been proven. The Indominus Rex was complete garbage, and the Hypsilophodon, yeah, we don't talk about that guy. I still need to get another Hypsilophodon because mine came with two left legs or two left ankles. But yeah, I guess without further ado, let's just take a look at the box, shall we? So here we have the Dilophosaurus right there, and they actually used the render for it. I'm sure they edited it in some way, but I mean, what are you gonna do? And here we have the Hammond Collection logo along with the species name, Dilophosaurus. And here we have the side of the box where we are finally seeing renders now, we're finally seeing movie scenes now, so thank goodness for that. While bravely trying to obtain a raft, Teresa Delgado comes up close to a Dilophosaurus, but it is the Tyrannosaurus Rex that soon becomes a bigger problem in every way. Yeah, just completely overshadowed the Dilophosaurus, why don't ya? Anyways, here's the back of the box with some okay-ish renders. They're not really good, actually, especially the bottom one. And here we have the same bio on the top and the Jurassic World Rebirth logo and the Dilophosaurus name. And here we have the other three in the corner. The Mutodon, I don't think has officially released yet. I think it may be releasing in June. I don't know, actually. I can't verify that. And here is the bottom of the box. Again, nothing really too special. So, yeah, let's just get this guy open, shall we? So and yes, I finally found the X-Acto knife. I don't know what happened to it in the time that I don't know what happened to it. That's all I'm saying. Anyways, let's just pull this guy out of the box. Okay, so far it's got all the correct limbs. Alright, it does look like it has the correct limbs, so we can move on. And actually, let's just get the stuff out of there first before we actually free the Dilo. Come on. So here we have the Dilo tail. Boy, this is going to be tough. Actually, I lied. Okay, maybe once again, I lied 3 times. Alrighty, and at least 4 of these. Again, this figure is not very secure, so we can just pull it out. And I will be back in a moment. Alrighty, this figure is Gucci Gang. I think it's time that we do a little ASMR. Oh, let's get rid of this piece, and let's just replace it with the proper piece. Yeah, that's right. I'm calling the open fill the proper piece, baby. And, much, much better. So here we have the Rebirth Dilophosaurus, and, it looks quite nice. I really like all the paint detail on it, which is quite rare for a Hammond Collection figure nowadays. They barely even have any paint. Like, for example, the Hypsilophodon, which, okay, yeah, it does have a decent amount of paint detail. It's not necessarily as good as this one. Which, hot diggity damn, the paint runs all the way down the tail this time. I don't know how I didn't notice that, but whatever. And, yeah, this figure is actually a pretty decent upgrade of the original one. Mine's jaw looks a little bit crooked for some reason, but I'm sure that could be fixed. Anyways, yeah. It looks kind of nice, the coloration and stuff. The head I didn't really like it too much initially because it looked quite boxy and odd. But I've grown to like it a little bit more. It's still not too much though. His head just looks a bit goofy. I think it's mostly just because there's no real dark pattern around its eyes, which I mean I guess is true, but the render does show that it has like but the render is showing some dark circles around its eyes, so either the render is just edited wrong, or this thing needs dark circles around its eyes, because it does look kind of odd without them. I can't lie. And not to mention the crests just look weird. I don't know. They're just like plain orange. It just looks very weird. But the frill does look quite nice actually. At first I thought the base color was black and not this reddish brown. So, yeah. I don't know how to feel about this whole reddish brown thing, and the closed frill piece honestly looks kind of ugly. It looks, I don't know. It kind of looks like some weird burn flesh or something. I don't know. But yeah, overall, I really like the color that they used for this thing. The yellowish tan, and yeah, and the green actually does look kind of nice on this figure too. It's almost exactly like the original Dilophosaurus green. You compare them side by side. Maybe the Dilophosaurus appears a little bit darker on camera, but they look practically the same to me. But anyways, I think it's time that we get into some articulation, shall we? So the jaw can open and close. Mine requires a bit of work to get the jaw to close fully, but once it does close fully, it looks quite nice, actually. The head can move up and down and rotate a full 360. Same thing with the neck. The arms can rotate a full 360 and spread from the body. The elbows can move up and down and rotate a full 360. The legs can rotate a full 360 and spread from the body. This one apparently can spread much better than this one. I don't understand what's going on here. The knees can move up and down and rotate a full 360, and so can the ankles, which finally we get ankle articulation for the Dilophosaurus. And we also get some feet articulation, classic. The tail's on a ball joint and can move around a little bit. There is still some ratchety joints in there too, in which there are clicks you can feel, like I'm sure you can see it. I don't know if it's picking up the sound of the clicks too well, because honestly they're quite quiet. Honestly, they're kind of quiet. But you can feel the clicks whenever you move this thing up and down, left and right. Anyways, I just felt like I needed to bring it up. And the tail has a wire inside in which you can move around a little bit. I'm gonna position mine a little bit like that and just leave it like that, because like I've said in many reviews before this, I really do not like bending the tails. Sorry. I really do not like bending the tails because the insides of the tail are metal wires, and metal can fatigue if they are used a lot. I have had personal experience with this, and therefore try to avoid it as much as I can. So yeah, that's about it for the review portion. I think it's now time that we compare this to the Jurassic Park Dilophosaurus, bitch. Okay, so now my tablet wants to focus. Alright. So now it's time that we actually compare these two together and see the similarities and differences that they share. I think it's important that we first look at the Hammond Collection Dilophosaurus released back in 2022, because this is a much more primitive figure and the very first Hammond Collection Dilophosaurus that we've gotten. And I'm hoping that this won't be the last one, considering that Jurassic World Dominion had a Dilophosaurus, and I don't know if there were any other Jurassic films that have Dilophosaurus. Well, now that they're doing Camp Cretaceous figures, I think the Dilophosaurus was featured in Camp Cretaceous, so now that they're doing Camp Cretaceous figures, then I guess they have another excuse to make another Dilophosaurus. But anyways, the head mold looks a little bit better on this one. The crests are more of a smooth oval shape rather than this weird wonky semicircle. And overall, looks just nicer in general. Now, unfortunately, both of these do share the slit pupil, which is entirely inaccurate to the Dilophosaurus. They have the dotted pupils. Why they decided to give these figures slit pupils is beyond me, considering the fact that, this is supposed to be a premium collector's line that, shows a little bit more accuracy in the figures, and therefore should, at least try to make an effort to be a bit more accurate. I mean, the mainline figures have freaking dotted pupils. Anyways, I'm not going to go on a tangent here. But overall, this figure is a bit thin and malnourished looking compared to the much more beefy Rebirth Dilophosaurus. The neck is kind of thin. The head is pretty small. The arms are also quite small, and the legs especially are quite thin. Now, I get that this is meant to be more of a small and scrawny dinosaur, so that is very much understandable. But, still. Not to mention the feet look quite big, and, someone actually brought up the fact that the Hammond Collection Dilophosaurus feet may actually be the same size as the Amber Collection Dilophosaurus feet, which I will see right now. And, holy crap, they are indeed the exact same size. I think the Hammond Collection Dilophosaurus foot might even be bigger. What the hell, man? Wait, what? What am I doing here? So, yeah, we can clearly see that the Hammond Collection Dilophosaurus from 2022 is a very much shrink-wrapped version of the Amber Collection Dilophosaurus, because the sculpts look quite similar in comparison to one another. And, I don't know what they did with the legs, and why they didn't just, copy the Amber Dilophosaurus leg outright, but they went with this, which is a little odd. And I think by comparison, the tail on this figure is actually a decent size. But then again, Mattel is going to be Mattel. And not to mention the Amber Collection Dilophosaurus, as you can see there, does indeed have dotted pupils. So, yeah, why can't they do that? Anyway, so now that we have looked at this figure, we will now take a look at the Rebirth Dilophosaurus. So in classic Mattel fashion, they like to reuse parts as much as they can. And whenever I say reuse parts as much as they can, I mean it. They really do like reusing their parts in sculpts. I mean, for crying out loud, the Hammond Collection Brachiosaurus was copied for the Titanosaurus. Okay, maybe not one-on-one, but, the body design looks a lot like the Brachiosaurus from the Hammond Collection. Anyways, so, yeah, for similarities, the body and arms are the exact same size, and the exact same sculpt, may I add, and the tail is the exact same size as well. In fact, comparing the two side by side, these are the exact same tail. It's just that one is painted differently. And also there is tan plastic surrounding the ball joint rather than the green plastic on the original Dilophosaurus. But there are differences. Like, for example, the head is bigger and also boxier. The frills look a bit weirder. The neck actually does appear to be thicker now, bringing in the older Dilophosaurus. The neck does appear to look a bit thicker. Or maybe it's in the same size range. I can't really tell. The legs this time are actually much different from the original. The legs are actually a bit bigger than the previous Dilophosaurus legs. And yeah, obviously they're extraposable. And the feet are finally shorter on this figure. They shrunk down the feet, thankfully. Now, since this figure basically is a retooled version of the Dilophosaurus, you would think that you could be able to swap the parts of these figures quite easily, right? Well, no. You see, I wanted to get more than one Rebirth Dilophosaurus. Actually, I got one yesterday as of recording this, so that way I could swap the parts around. But come to find out, that wouldn't be possible at all. Because you see, this is the Rebirth Dilophosaurus leg, which, yes, I know it's cut in half, but I mean, this figure is still available right now, so don't come at me. And as you can see, and here it is compared to the Dilophosaurus leg. Not only is the leg itself like bigger, but the joint itself is a lot larger, and there's even a little pin right there. Why that's there, I really don't know. But yeah, overall, you can't really just like shove it in the joint and then call it a day, because yeah, that just wouldn't be possible. So if you really want to modify your Hammond Collection JP Dilophosaurus to give it extra leg articulation, what you'll want to do is just cut these in half, and what you'll do is you'll cut the leg down to around here, like halfway through the calf muscle. And for the Rebirth Dilophosaurus, the joint for the foot ends around here, I believe. Yeah, it ends right before the large calf muscle. So you'll want to cut down there too. Anyways, I'll hold up the leg to give out a little diagram. So like around there with the calf muscle. Same thing with the Dilophosaurus. Cut it around here. And you will most likely need to trim down the Rebirth Dilophosaurus leg. What I did is I superglued the parts together. But make sure that the ankle and feet are off of this joint before you superglue it, because I did cut down to where the joint was starting to get exposed, so I didn't want to risk accidentally gluing the joint and having some bad complications. And so I took off the joint. And so I removed the ankle and foot. And thankfully it gave me a pretty good result. I had accidentally made the leg a bit too long on my figure. But yeah, if you really want to do that, just do that. And also, if you want to try to blend this color to the rest of the Dilophosaurus body, kind of like how I did, well, I'm not really good at blending the dark color. There is a pretty decent solution for it, and it's less than $1. What you'll need is some Apple Barrel matte khaki paint, and here's mine that I've taken apart, and shoot, I need it. Right there is the khaki paint itself, and although the color doesn't really match perfectly per se, it still does match quite decently. And you can barely notice it whenever you're looking at it like this. So yeah, if you're buying a Rebirth Dilophosaurus purely to try and upgrade your Hammond Collection JP Dilophosaurus, do what I did and cut the leg parts in half and then glue them together. And once they're glued together, you will most likely need to trim them down because the Rebirth leg is much beefier than the JP leg. So yeah. Before I sign off, I do want to compare the frills also, and the Dilophosaurus frill from the JP one. The paint doesn't really like go out all the way. There is a massive. Shoot, I forgot the term for the black border around a screen. Oh, the bezel. Yeah, there is a very giant bezel around the Dilophosaurus frill pattern, and I don't know why, but yeah. Unlike the Rebirth frill, where the bezel is almost non-existent, and actually looks quite nice. And while the Dilophosaurus frill is very blunt and pointy, and there's a very thick portion of the skin underneath, this one is much bumpier and spinier, and there is a much much deeper cut in the bottom of the frill. And also Mesozoic Vlogs pointed out that the frill is actually kind of different because the left frill is bigger than the right frill apparently. I kind of see it, but at the same time really don't see it too well. But I mean, I hadn't watched Rebirth since it came out in theater, so I can't really say for sure. But yeah, in terms of the actual material that they used, the Rebirth Dilophosaurus frill is actually made out of a very soft plastic. Meanwhile, the Dilophosaurus frill is made out of a soft plastic, but the plastic that they used is a bit harder than this one. So it's much easier to just get the frill on there on this guy rather than, you know, whenever you try doing it with the Jurassic Park one. And in case you're wondering, whilst this frill spins around, I'm pretty sure. Oh boy, it's a lot harder to spin this one around. Which, finally, although this is kind of fun in retrospect, just spinning around the frill, it does get kind of annoying whenever I try to move it because, you know, the frill gets like out of position very quickly. So yeah, that's about it for the open frill. Now, in terms of the closed frills, the Hammond collection Dilophosaurus from Jurassic Park has a much shorter closed frill piece. It is very bright off-white / yellowish with some red underneath. Meanwhile, this one is red with some orange here, then darkening to a more brownish color underneath. Now, while technically this figure shouldn't even have a closed frill piece since it was barely visible. In fact, there were two separate animatronics, one without a frill at all and one with a frill. But in Rebirth, we did see the Dilophosaurus close its frill, or at least have a closed frill. So that's something. Now, cosmetic-wise, the Dilophosaurus frill is much better. But in terms of practicality, the Rebirth Dilophosaurus closed frill does get the point because you can just clip it in there and the head will be, and it's a bit more secure than the other one. Although honestly, yeah, now I'm thinking about it, this one doesn't get the point for practicality because yeah, now the head is very much limited and it's just, yeah. Meanwhile, with the Jurassic Park Dilophosaurus, you can just put the frill in, and although the head movement is still pretty limited, it is not nearly as limited as on the Rebirth Dilophosaurus. So while you probably won't be getting any sort of head moving action, you will indeed get some neck moving action, and sometimes that is just enough. Now, for material-wise, the Rebirth Dilophosaurus gets the Jurassic Park Dilophosaurus frill gets the point, like, by a mile shot. Because it is made out of a soft, rubbery-ish type of plastic. And it's still kind of hard. Meanwhile, the Rebirth Dilophosaurus closed frill piece, for whatever reason, is made out of a very hard and cheap plastic. I mean, like, compare that noise to. I need squishiness. I cannot have. I can't have the frill sounding like that. Now, in terms of how it looks on the actual figure itself, I do gotta say the Rebirth Dilophosaurus closed frill looks a lot better on this one than this frill piece. Although then again, this is a much more primitive figure, so there will be some odd design choices that will be improved later on. So yeah. That will be it for this video. I'll see you guys in the next one, and goodbye.